So last night we were talking about the water crisis in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi specifically. And, there are a lot of excuses. But one of the things that stood out was the fact that it's an expensive job for them to fix the water plants. They didn't have the money. All these excuses. Of course, economics is going to play into this. As always, we don't have the money, right? But is that necessarily true? Now, this morning, something else came out about Mississippi that does not look good in reference to funds. First, I'm going to play you the clip or part of the clip from the mayor in Jackson, Mississippi. So he's speaking out about the water crisis issue. And then I'm going to show you what was just announced this morning about where the money has been going in Mississippi. And they have another scandal and crisis on their hands. And this time it involves Brett Favre, former NFL quarterback. And we're going to connect the two because I really believe after you see what I show you tonight, there really was no excuse for this water situation. So let's go ahead and get started with the mayor and hear what he has to say about the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi.
Having me again and happy to be able to lift up this circumstance on your show. This has been something we've been crying out for more than 2 years, saying that it's not a matter of if our systems will fail, but a matter of when our systems will fail. I have described Jackson as the poster child of the infrastructure challenges that we see in this country. And so this is something that when the state joined me and shared that they would be bringing in resources, bringing in a team to support us, we welcome that with open arms because we've been saying that we needed the support. We've been saying that we need resources. And so this is a matter of human rights. This is a matter of deferred maintenance that has happened over decades, a lack of investment in capital improvements, and quite possibly, quite honestly, probably more than $1 billion worth of challenges that have to go into our water distribution system. And so we were sustaining some level of improvement yesterday, but the system, true to its form and true to what we have seen, had a bit of regression last night. And so we're struggling to get tanks back up, struggling to be able to restore water pressure across the city. And so we believe that our residents are worthy of a system which is sustainable, are worthy of a system which is equitable, serving all of the residents and not having a disproportionate effect on the poorest communities in South Jackson.
And Mayor, I wanted to ask you about the responsibility of the state government in this issue.
Okay, wait for it. Now he's going to ask him about the state government responsibility.
The state legislature. Mississippi has long been the nation's poorest state. It's also the state with the highest percentage of African American residents. Could you talk about how the state has responded in the past to your request, and also the issue of the state constitution not allowing municipalities to tax themselves, have independent taxing authority, and how that affects your ability to remedy the water infrastructure problems?
It is clear that we're heavily reliant on the state for many of these resources, not only because we don't have the independent ability to tax ourselves, but because even the federal funding that is sent to or intended for cities like Jackson, the conduit that it comes through is actually the state of Mississippi.
Hold that thought. Now, you can watch the rest of that interview, ironically enough, on Democracy Now! We were just talking about them. But hold that thought to what he just said. The state is supposed to help. Now, when we talked about this last night, again, I told you, what did they say on the news? They said, it's too expensive. The funding is a problem. There's a new scandal in Mississippi. $86 million scandal. Money that came through the state. What happened to it? Where did it go? Let's get into it.
The state rejects 90% of those who apply, including Edwards.
You know, you have to make a choice whether you want to pay your light bill or whether you want to put food on the table.
Tamara Edwards raised 4 children on her own in Mississippi, applying for welfare benefits just once for childcare while she worked. Each year, Mississippi gets $86 million in welfare money from the federal government, though the state rejects 90% of those who apply, including
$86 million. The state gets $86 million from the federal government for welfare. 86 million. Hold that thought, because we need to see what happened to that money.
including Edwards.
When I reapplied, I was not able to be on it again because they told me that they didn't have the fundings for it.
But the state was dispersing millions more of its welfare dollars, just not to families that urgently needed it. In court documents and audit reports, the state alleges that the head of Mississippi's welfare agency squandered more than $70 million intended for children in poverty.
Did you hear that? $70 million was squandered that was intended for children living in poverty. $70 million. No freaking way. No way. And then you have Jackson, Mississippi is going through a water crisis right now. They said they have no money. They didn't have enough money to fix the water plants, right? That's why they're in this situation. It's built up over time. But the state has squandered $70 million. Let's go in.
Instead, using it as a private slush fund to benefit his family and friends. Tens of millions of dollars on items like hiring retired pro wrestlers, first-class air travel, a horse ranch, and $5 million to build this women's volleyball facility at the University of Southern Mississippi. That building with ties to an NFL Hall of Famer. Brett Favre's daughter played volleyball at the university. Text messages obtained by Mississippi Today show Favre saying he helped secure government grant money for a new arena. And he personally was paid more than $1 million to give 3 motivational speeches that never happened.
Did you hear that? So, by the way, they've reached out to Brett Favre for comment. There's no comment. So that's that, just in case you're wondering. Why are welfare funds going into Brett Favre's pocket? Why were they using that money to pay him money to give speeches that never even happened? Isn't this illegal? Isn't this a crime? All that money gone. And you have people without water in that state. Unfucking believable. Unbelievable. Excuse my language. But that has to anger you.
Favre declined to talk to NBC News, but his attorney says he has been questioned by the FBI. Favre says he never knew it was welfare money and paid it back after demands by state officials. Favre still owes $228,000 in interest imposed by the state auditor.
I wanted to at least collect the facts.
Former U.S. Attorney Brad Pygott was hired by the state to find the money.
How is Brett Favre getting money that's supposed to get kids out of poverty?
It's a mystery to us. Here we had tens of millions of dollars sent by the country to do the thing that we need done the most, and it was squandered.
In July, he issued a subpoena to get more answers about that volleyball arena, including any communications between the university and former Governor Phil Bryant, whom Pygott says directed the spending. Bryant says he was unaware that welfare money was involved.
What happened to you after you filed your subpoena?
I was terminated.
The state welfare agency says they fired Pygott because the client and the lawyer were not on the same page. The investigation has only recently resumed. Welfare agency head John Davis was arrested and charged with bribery and conspiracy. He pled not guilty. The agency declined an interview, saying they are committed to rebuilding the trust of the citizens and making all future grant decisions by committee. So far, just $1.1 million has been recovered.
We're real people. There's real people out there that really need that money.
Ken Delanian, NBC News, Jackson, Mississippi.
I'm just thinking about all the people that really needed that money. State funds should have never been going to Brett Favre to begin with. That should never happen. And can somebody explain to me what's going on in Mississippi? Notice how the gentleman that they talked to, both gentlemen, was like, I don't know how this happened. Nobody knows, but it happened, right? Isn't that interesting how no one seems to know? $70 million. There's no money trail. We're going to talk about this tonight on Call In. We need to talk about what has happened in Jackson, Mississippi. And it's not just because, oh, we had this issue with funding and you just saw how much money the state is actually getting. And then you had someone in a position of power that was squandering the money away. So it wasn't going to the people that it really needed to go to. They could have taken some of that money and given it to people in Jackson, Mississippi. They could have taken some of that money and helped fix that water plant in Jackson, Mississippi. But no, they wanted to give money to Brett Favre. This guy was spending money to pay for retired wrestlers. This guy was spending money for airline tickets to build a new facility. They don't care about spending the money because, again, it's money that is supposed to go to a group of people that they don't care about. They don't care about poor people. They don't care about Black people. We talked about this last night. Jackson, Mississippi is 82.5% Black. They don't care. So for them, they're just like, who cares? They're poors. Who cares if they struggle? Who cares if they die? We're going to live the life off this money. That has to be a federal crime. That has to be a federal one. That much money? Lauren said money laundering. Terrible, huh? So I don't know. I think Brett Favre needs to issue more of a statement except for, oh, I paid some of it back. No, like, come on. We cannot continue to let this happen to these types of communities. And it's been happening. Look at what they did to people in Flint. Has there been any accountability still for what happened to the people in Flint? Wouldn't have happened to rich people, though. I'll tell you that much. Wouldn't have happened.